Hey there, Internet friends. Trevor Starkey here with another episode of AC Saturday, my weekly Saturday show where I sit down and talk about anime and or comics. Today we are diving into the first, and I'm sure a long series of Invincible, because I've got like Compendium One here, 47 issues. Jesus. The series is wrapping up here, so I figured, hey, I should start reading that if I want to, get into the comic itself. So I've read issues 1 through 4, and that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm sure I'll continue this going for a little while until I decide to take a break and then switch over to something else. So Invincible, if you are unfamiliar, follows the tale of young high schooler Mark Grayson, who is also the superhero Invincible. In issue 1 here, we kind of get to see his little origin story. The issue starts with him fighting off a guy with a bomb strapped to him. The guy blows up and he crashes to the ground and says something to the effect of, like, if you keep this up, you're going to get a heart attack. Cuts back 4 months to his mom basically saying the same thing to him while he's in the bathroom because she thinks he's masturbating. So that was a nice little, there's a tonal shift. He was not masturbating. Instead, he was reading superhero comic books, and then he goes downstairs, gets ready for school, average high school teenager stuff, asks about his father. Mom says, I don't know where he is. Cut to a news report about a superhero named Omni-Man fighting a giant dragon in Taiwan, and they basically say, oh, well, now we know where your dad is, because it turns out this young man is the son of basically like a big, well-known superhero in this world. So Mark goes off to school, kind of does his daily routine, goes to his little night job at the burger place, and goes to throw some garbage in the bin, and ends up way overshooting it because his powers have started to manifest. And he eventually kind of tests it out and figures out, yep, he can fly and do all basically the same kind of cool stuff his dad does. And so that's kind of the issue 1 is the origin. He figures out, okay, who do I want to be? He just kind of falls into superheroing, throws on like a random custom kind of disguise that like a bandana and goggles basically to hide who he is, but he starts kind of breaking up, street level robberies and stuff like that. When his dad, figures out how well he's doing, they take him to the tailor to figure out, okay, let's get you an actual super suit kind of experience. But the tailor's like, well, what like, you want to be iconic, you want an iconic suit, okay, what name do you have to go with it? Because, a name helps make the suit, basically. And so cuts back to Mark at school, trying to figure out what he wants to be, what he wants to go by. A bully kind of ends up, picking on somebody next to him, and he basically says, hey, cut it out, fights back, pushes the bully into a locker, and I mean into a locker, and the principal basically says, like, what do you like, I appreciate, the intent behind what you're doing, but you can't do it, you're not invincible. And it cuts to, a knowing look at Mark, his face, and he's basically like, there's my title, Invincible. So that's issue 1, standard kind of boilerplate origin story. His father's a superhero, so he's inherited the superhero kind of traits. Issue 2 gets a little bit more into the father's backstory. He is a Superman-esque character that comes from a very... it's basically like if Krypton didn't kind of collapse in on itself. Krypton, the planet that he comes from, the pinnacle of a perfect society, decides to go out and help other societies. He gets tasked with researching Earth and finding Earth, and says, okay, I think we should go, support these guys. And the council basically says, no, they're not ready for us yet. But he says, all right, well, how about you let me go as like a sole protector, one-man team kind of thing, because the father had been very taken by Earth and its customs and stuff like that. And the council says, okay, but if you do this, you might never come back. And he does it anyway. He goes, he leaves. And so that's how Mark's father, Mr. Grayson, kind of comes to Earth, ends up kind of being superheroic. I don't quite know. They haven't really gotten into how or why there were already supervillains and stuff here, because they show off some, like, big tentacle creatures and stuff like that he was fighting in his early days. So curious as to see how they dive into the little backstory there. Issue 3 ends up being a bit of the son starts teaming up with other heroes, and even does like a little team-up adventure with his dad. The Graysons kind of go out flying. Mark realizes that he's, still well underpowered from his father, because they'll be flying along, and his dad will just dash off, go save something, and then dash back, continue the conversation. In doing this little outing, they get pulled into a fight with like interdimensional beings that are flying through, and they start beating the crap out of these things and realize quickly that these things age super quick, so they're basically like getting old and dying in the Earth's atmosphere or whatever. So they're trying to figure out. They basically, make a retreat and then continue on. Meanwhile, there's also this like explosion, like students are being turned into bombs. There's missing students at Mark's school, and so when they're trying to, like, they find one who's basically gonna like die, and so the dad throws him up through the roof so it doesn't like blow up and kill everybody around him. He just blows up in the air, and then like the portal creatures come and drag the dad back into his dimension, and Mark goes home and he's basically nonchalantly, yeah, Dad got sucked into a portal. Any word from him? I'm sure I'll be fine. And it's like so weird that they kind of address that this has been like, such a commonplace. And I think the most they talk about is, you remember when he was gone for 6 months when you were a kid and you missed your birthday or whatever. And so I immediately started saying like, oh, like he's not going to come back. Cut to issue 4. The teen squad or whatever that Mark is a part of kind of further uncovers and figures out who's been like putting together the suicide bomb kids. Turns out it's one of their teachers. Eve, Adam Eve, I think, is basically the nuclear powered girl who's kind of paired up with Mark a lot, with Invincible for a lot of this, and basically they people keep referring to them as like they're in a relationship, and they're not, because she's dating one of the other superheroes. They go after the teacher, the physics teacher that basically has been figuring this all out and kind of putting the bombs on everybody, and he openly confesses knowing who they are, because as he points out, like Eve isn't really even wearing a mask to hide her identity, so he introduces them in and like welcomes them in, kind of confesses that he was doing this because he sees these kids as like indicative of what led his kid to cause suicide, and so he's like a very grieving father, kind of like his kid killed himself and then that basically ruined his life, and so he's blaming these other kids for this and blowing them up. He straps the bomb to himself, trying to kill the superheroes, and Invincible cuts back to the first set of panels we saw in issue 1, where Invincible basically takes him to Antarctica to blow him up out there, and then he comes flying back. Comes back, and his dad also shows back up, and they have like a little calm conversation at the dinner table, like, so how was everybody's day? And the son kind of goes through all of his stuff and how he discovered that his physics teacher was, crazy and killing people, and the dad says, I've been trapped for 8 months, but it seems like time moved differently here. About a week ago, we kind of caused a rebellion, I was able to get my powers back, and now I'm back. And it's like, ooh, dang, shit got real for him. So, yeah, I'm really enjoying Invincible so far. It's a lot to kind of run through in terms of processing it all. I was hitting it at snail's pace today because I've been under the weather, so that hasn't been too fun. But I'm really enjoying the story. I'm interested to see where they go as they've kind of got some of these things established, and see how some of this stuff plays into maybe a bigger arc, what's going on with the interdimensional beings, and are they going to come in and cause more trouble for the Grayson family. So yeah, those are my initial thoughts on issues 1 through 4 of Invincible. Let me know what you think of the series in the comments below. Please, no spoilers. As always, I've been your host, Trevor Starkey from TrevorTrove.com. You can follow me at SnarkyStarkey on Twitter. And until next time, here at the Trove, treasure your friends.